set against the backdrop of an existing housing crisis, Cyclone Gabrielle has not only destroyed homes but also added to the demand of people looking for accommodation. Minister of Housing Megan Woods visited Hawke's Bay to outline the government's response.
So look, in terms of what we know how many people have registered for the temporary accommodation service. We know how many houses have been red stickered or red placarded and how many have been yellow. So all the rapid assessments have now been completed, and I think that's a real credit. That's been bringing in those people to do those inspections from outside of this area. So people have been coming out from Wellington and coming from outside the Hawke's Bay. What we really need to do now is really dig down into what the demand is going to be in the future for the temporary accommodation service. We know at the moment there's a lot of people that are staying with friends and family that probably won't do that for the period of time that it might require for their house to be repaired. So what I'm really urging anyone to do is to come forward to register with the temporary accommodation service so we really can start to build that picture for the recovery of what the demand's going to look like. The updated number is around 84 people have registered for the temporary accommodation service. It's not about the criteria. We see this, and I know this having gone through the earthquakes in Christchurch, that in that immediate response phase, people often go and stay with friends and family. They don't see themselves as requiring housing. It's really as we get through a number of days and weeks that people think, well, this is going to take quite a while. I'm going to need something a bit more permanent than sleeping on my sister's couch or staying with my auntie. So that's why I'm saying I'm really asking people to come through and register. We're encouraging people to do that, and there certainly isn't a criteria that's stopping people doing it. So that's been a big part of the purpose of my visit here today, is to see things for myself on the ground and to talk to people. We've already begun talks with councils, with iwi, with community groups around what some of those more medium and long-term temporary arrangements might look like. Are they temporary villages? Is it housing that can be repurposed after it's served its purposes, temporary accommodation, to be longer term housing solutions for the region? So they're conversations that are well underway. One of the things that we do have here in this region is that it had already been a focus for our place-based housing program. It was the first place we did it. So one of the things that we have that not many parts of New Zealand can say is that actually we have land that is build ready. It's got the infrastructure in some places it's consented and it is good to go to get houses on it, and that the investment in infrastructure has been there because we've been partnering with this part of New Zealand for about 3 or 4 years now to try and solve a housing crisis. So I think we're in a good place to be able to get beyond those immediate motels and hotel kind of solutions, but it will take time. Well, of course, as you rightly identify, many people as part of their house insurance do have the ability to have accommodation paid for as part of that, and we're working through what other support can be there for people through MSD, that we understand this is a really difficult time, and that again has been part of the focus of talking to the team on the ground here today to try and get a sense of what the circumstances are here, because what we know is that we can understand the theories of disasters, but in terms of how it is that it plays out on the ground locally will differ from place to place. I also went to Kennedy Park and met some of the people that are staying in our temporary accommodation, and I think people that have gone through an ordeal. They've had an incredibly rough period of time they've been through, but also just feeling like that they've got somewhere safe to be, and that they're being well looked after. What I've also heard here on the ground is, I think, that dream we always have of government, that the agencies are all working together. This all of government response is really coming together. I've said to the teams, my experience in Christchurch, I want people to walk through the door and the department of getting your life sorted. They shouldn't have to navigate themselves between different bits of government, and that's really what I've seen working here on the ground, and people that have been working day and night and working incredibly hard. As we also know in Christchurch, is that they weren't decisions that were rushed into. That took a period of time. The meetings I've had this morning certainly talked about if we're going to be building new developments, greenfield developments, we certainly have to have a long and hard look at what the flood risk looks like and what we might have to do to mitigate any flooding that could happen. As I said, none of us want to sit, have a group of people in a couple of 100 years' time sitting around a table like we are today saying if only someone hadn't built there. I have already talked to the electricity retailers and certainly it was their intention not to. Sometimes billing systems have a different mind have a mind of their own. I'm happy to pick that up and have a talk to the Retailers Association but I imagine what's happened is computer said bill time.